To be clear, 14.0, 14.1,
Yeah.
14.2 all exist now. So each one of these has, is not like a single day. It's like a couple of weeks to get out. So 14 comes out, it starts releasing, and then 2 weeks later, perhaps even before everyone gets 14, the early people get 14.1. I think that they may wait for additional data to be gathered for a month. 14.2 wide. It'll be used in Austin, San Francisco,
Right.
LA, Arizona, Nevada, and they'll get more and more data to support the fact, and also more and more testing, because they've only tested with a few hundred employees, and they're quite confident with it, but they want to see the usage by people so they can say, yes, what we saw is confirmed.
We told you so. The Tesla FSD Kraken is about to be released, and every sign of competition in its path is going to be wiped out. I have Brian Wong with me today. Brian is an expert deep tech analyst, investor. He's a futurist thought leader. He runs the prominent science blog nextbigfuture.com. Welcome, Brian. We've been talking about this over the past few weeks, and then boom, Elon gives us the timeline. Were you caught off guard? I was. I didn't expect it so soon after his comments at the All-In Summit. I thought, okay, this is probably closer to the investor meeting and all of that.
Yeah. So the interpretation that it would be, taking a few months was saying that there'd be multiple releases, what they call point releases, 14.1, 2 weeks later, and then don't give a date, but over a couple of months, they will get to 14.2. So I was expecting that there would be, and there is, some releasing to the employees, to the early, like the Homars, early influencers,
The
and those
early
kind of stuff,
testers.
the early testers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you go, so each one of these has, is not like a single day. It's like a couple of weeks to get out. So 14 comes out, it starts releasing, and then 2 weeks later, perhaps even before everyone gets 14, the early people get 14.1. Right.
Right.
So it's a series of releases on that.
Yeah.
So this is the confirming what was the best case interpretation of Elon's statements.
The best case indeed.
Yeah.
And especially considering the fact that he very clearly said that version 14 would just be that big game changer where it would be 2 to 3 times better or safer than a human driver,
Right.
and then possibly even 10. So this was him signposting that it's 14.1, 14.2, maybe down to 15, 16
Right.
on hardware 5, but on hardware 4 itself, by the end of the year, he says. So there are obviously going to be more versions as we move towards the end of the year. Where do you think he's indicating that feeling of sentience in your car?
Well, he's saying that the feel of it is completely different, just like previous aspects of AI, where like ChatGPT, GPT-3, or something like that. It was the people who were using it initially, GPT-2, saw flashes of really good capability. But it's once the whole thing kind of came together with GPT-3, that anyone could use it and say, this feels different. This feels intelligent. So similarly, we can see flashes. Like people can say, okay, some people have driven FSD 12 and 13, and they've had wonderful experiences where they felt this feels like the breakthrough is happening. But it wasn't consistent. It wasn't, well, some people have gotten to where they have had no interventions for like 6 months, right? But it's a bit uneven, right? And also, many don't get it all the time, where it's like, and then it does something where, well, that wasn't that smart, or that was a problem, right? So that goes to the feeling aspect of it, where it feels sentient, where basically the consistency, the quality is constant, right? So then it feels good. Yeah.
So we don't necessarily have to. So as in, it's going to be safer, maybe 2 or 3 times, if not more, by the time we get to 14.2, perhaps. But it's a clear signal that, and this is my take, and correct me if you feel differently, but the wider release for FSD and the removal of the supervising drivers is just around the corner, even with version 14.
Right. Yes, it is around the corner. It's
Yeah.
basically a interpretation by the team, Tesla and Elon, etc., about um, when do they have the statistical evidence that they need to have the comfort that they will not generate a bad accident that would be a problem, and whether they'll be able to support their decision to NHTSA, National Highway Safety, if the question comes up, you're removing it, why, all that kind of stuff. So when they feel good, technical, data, legal, and then regulatory, then they'll say, okay, let's go on it. So clearly they're getting close upon it. Whether 14.2, I think that they may wait for additional data to be gathered for a month. 14.2 wide. It'll be used in Austin, um, San
Right.
Francisco, LA,
Yeah.
Arizona, Nevada, and they'll get more and more data to support the fact, and also more and more testing, because they've
Yeah.
only tested with a few hundred employees, and they're quite confident with it, but they want to see you know the usage by people so they can say, yes, what we saw is confirmed. The data is showing that this is better.
Right. So to go from 14.1 and then 14.2, it's essentially a lot of reinforcement learning that's involved, which is a function of how much of base data you get, how much you can
So
add the
to be
data you
clear,
can collect.
14.0, 14.1,
Yeah.
14.2 all exist now. They all three exist right now and are being
Right.
used and tested by Tesla employees.
Right.
So
Internally.
the internally, the
Yeah.
timeline was 2 or 3 months ago, backdating about what had to happen, right? They got to 14.0, right? And they saw it was
Mm.
great and all that kind of stuff. And they intended to have the parameters. They knew, okay, we got this and we're doing that, right? Shortly after they began internal testing, they realized that even though it was great, that there was some adjustments, some software, some things that need to be done that were pretty clear. Like
Hmm.
right away, they knew, okay, we need to make some adjustments. And then within a week, they created those adjustments, and thus 14.1 was created. So they knew in testing in the first week, hey, we've got to shave off some rough edges. They make the rough edge fix, and then that's called 14.1. And
Oh,
then
I see.
they do
Okay.
more testing in 14.1 and 14.0 because they're both being tested. And then they realize, oh, even more improvements you made. But that probably takes a month, 6 weeks. We don't know, right? So they've been in testing for 2 months, and 14.2 has likely been tested for at least 2 weeks and maybe a month. And that's where they're getting the supply I'm feeling, because Elon has been driving 14.2, and he's saying
Right.
it will almost feel sentient, because he's saying it's almost feeling sentient to me as I drive
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? So it's not I'm hoping it's going to be feel sentient. I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm driving it and it feels sentient a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it's like maybe 98, 99%. And the sentient part is when you're in the car with a better chauffeur, better taxi driver, whoever, right? You're in the passenger seat, or you're in the back seat.
Right. Right.
When you're with a better driver, then it's not just they're not getting into accidents, not just whatever. It's the smoothness, it's the
Yeah.
control that they have, right?
Yeah.
Where you feel like, you know, this guy is next level and doing great. I just feel it, right? Beyond
Yeah.
just an ordinary driver, just not even being, I'm not like I'm sitting beside a beginner driver, right? There's the range of someone who is elite driving, right? That they got this totally under control. How they put it into reverse, and they can go backwards, for 200 feet under control to do some maneuver. It's kind of like, and not just doing the maneuver like a Hollywood stunt driver, but doing it under control.
Under control. Yeah,
under
that's the
control.
most important thing.
Right.
Under control in such a way that you can trust it and feel safe, because it's all about safety again for Tesla.
Right.
So just to be clear, so you're saying all these three versions exist right now, 14,
Right.
14.1, and 14.2. They're confident enough
Yeah.
to roll out 14 next week.
Yeah.
Um, Now I just want you to dwell a bit on this for my audience, because there's this whole debate about and just taking off from the point you were just making, what does it mean to actually feel sentient? So 14 perhaps is already maybe as good as an excellent human driver, if not better,
Hmm.
right? So it's already at that level
Right.
where you don't need the human supervision either behind the wheel or in the front seat next to the driver.
Hmm.
And that is a big, huge differentiator, because that means that Tesla can just roll out a lot more robotaxis next week itself, potentially.
Yeah. So that's not going to happen. Right.
Why?
Well, because um, technically it could be done. Technically,
Mhm.
they're as safe as human. Right. And so that would mean, yes, if I were willing to roll out Uber with regular human drivers and go out to 1 million people, right? I could do that. But the difference is Uber with human drivers can have the regular accident rate and people don't care, right? Because of course that's a human driver. They had an accident. What are you going to do,
Correct.
right? It's because this is Tesla and FSD and Robotaxi without human driver that um, that the difference is they can't get into that accident, right?
Mhm.
Maybe having those accidents doesn't matter mid 2026, right?
Right.
Where we've had a bunch of safe stuff and then something happens, and then also it's an accident that is, fundamental. Even though the first one, no matter when it is, even though it's 100 times safer, and then the accident rate is 1%, but then something happens. So they need to have enough under the belt where it's like saying, yeah, an accident happened, but it is clearly 2 to 3 times safer. Here's the data,
Right.
right?
So what is that point according to you? Where do you think that's possible at all this year, to just remove the human from the equation?
Yes, I think it's possible this year. I think it's
Okay.
possible this year, right?
Would it
So
be on a normal, let's say a Model Y, or would it be with a Cybercab? Because I mean, if you have okay, so first of all, do you think we'll see any Cybercabs at all on the road this year?
yes, yes, I
Okay,
think yeah, I think that we see that in December.
all right. So then there's no point of having a human in the Cybercab, because you
No,
don't
no,
have.
because so the difference is the Cybercab production
Right.
of say 1,000 Cybercabs,
Yeah.
right? So right now there are already dozens of Cybercabs, right? Those
Correct.
exist and are driving around and they're on streets. There's
Right.
dozens of Cybercabs. They were test production runs using the unboxed process,
Yeah.
right? Unboxed process being making it like giant Legos, and they have castings of it, right?
Yeah.
So getting to um, test serial production to get to like 1,000 produced Cybercab and have them on the roads, right? That would be again in a with drivers, because if they're not going to be sold, the Cybercabs are not going to be sold but built for Robotaxi, right? Those 1,000 cars can exist, or even 10,000 cars can exist, mostly be parked, um, hundreds or thousands being driven under testing conditions, because it would be um, Robotaxi with new camera positions, um, other tuned software for it, right?
Hmm.
So, um, so I can say, okay, you can see them, but they're not deployed. They're not fully deployed. They're in the um, um, some test situation. Maybe they're using them for internal employee driving, where
Okay.
they give rides to employees and that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
So they would be in a situation where they're not um, fully released. They'd be in a active beta,
Okay.
right? So that's why I expect in December, right? I
All
could be
right.
wrong. they could have the confidence to do it, right? But I'm saying that until they got the data, there would be some phase of not of working out there on streets, yet still not deployed. But I think by January, February, then they go that go to the point of the Kraken, then they go all out,
Right,
and then things
right,
happen.
right. But of course, that would necessitate. Do you think it can be done state-wise, depending upon the? I mean, Waymo exists without a driver already. So
Right.
wherever there's Waymo,
Yeah.
Tesla could easily just deploy the Cybercabs, right?
Right. Right. So over the course of say 2 months, let's say starting in November, December, right? They could remove the safety monitor
Hmm.
in Austin, right? That could happen, right?
So you're saying Model Y or
Yeah, Model Ys,
or
Model Y,
okay, right, right.
Model Ys, right? So they could do that in Austin. You know, you have a version 15 software. You say,
Hmm.
okay, it's good, and then they remove it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or they could do it in some other way, in some other location that is limited and maybe not with commercial passengers first.
Hmm.
They could do it anyway. So
Internally
there's
for
it,
employees or something like that.
employees something, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So they could do some kind of situation like that again, phased, and it could take from beginning of the process to the end. It could take 2 months, right? They don't fully go until like January 1 or January 5th or something like that. They start doing stuff in November, trial, and then feeling good about it, and then kick it off, bigger in January. But again,
Yeah.
still not, the pinky toe and then the full foot, right?
Right.
The full foot is 1,000. The full leg is 10,000, 100,000, right? So that's
I think there was a post indicating that maybe there's in Arizona there's some testing going on for Robotaxi,
yep,
right?
there is. Yeah.
So you talk about releasing the Kraken. How does expansion work when you in that context?
Um. So partially releasing. So they're ready in Austin. They're ready in the San Francisco Bay Area, right?
Hmm.
And then there was that table um, made by one of the Tesla X people about what like 14, 15 cities, 4 in California, 4 in Texas,
Right.
two in Arizona, one in Nevada, etc.
Hmm.
So you have this
Yeah.
whole list of places where they're some of them have already got regulatory. I think pretty much all of them have regulatory approval, and then they have the vehicles with lidar
Right.
mapping and checking things out, which is a step before releasing, say, with okay, here's Robotaxi in Arizona with 10 vehicles, just like
Hmm.
the release
In Austin.
in Austin, right?
Yeah.
So that's the release, and the more confident they are, they'll say, okay, Arizona on 10 cars, Nevada
Hmm.
on 10
Hmm.
cars, LA on 10 cars, Houston on 10 cars, right? So then that phase of the 10 car thing can last for a month, and then they scale up to 20 and 40 and stuff like that. So it's
Correct.
parallel to but lag
Yeah.
behind the 3 months ago or whatever we did it for Austin.
For Austin, yeah, because there was a broad understanding that we could see an expansion every 3 weeks or so,
Hmm.
and that doesn't seem to have happened. And you also had, I think, Elon saying that, indicating that they're going to target half of the population of America by the end of the year.
Right, the
So
half the population of America is um, the way I interpreted it would be if I have um, 20 or 40 pilots,
Hmm,
let's say 20 pilots with 10 cars each, even though it is clearly not servicing, say, 10 cars in Los Angeles. I'm
right.
clearly not serving all,
So there's a difference
in the
between targeting half the population and servicing half the population,
right,
and that
right,
is a function that is limited by the number of cars that you actually deploy in these
right, right, right,
areas.
right. The fact that I've started up 20, including Los Angeles, including New York, including whatever, and they add the population of those places because I am driving across the entire area. I'm going everywhere, only with 10 cars, right? Then you can say that 100 million people are covered, you know. So that's what that means. It doesn't. So for people who look at that, they say like that doesn't really count, you know. But it's like that's what the statement was, and that to the point though, they can once they're confident over, you know, let's say that happens 20 of these pilots by the by December, right?
Hmm.
And then 2 months, they go from 10 cars up to 1,000 cars each. So then I have 20,000 cars, right? Now I'm 10 times bigger than Waymo. I'm bigger than Waymo in every one of the locations, right? I'm giving 10% of the rides. Well, now I'm covering those places,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then I can quickly scale up to 200,000 cars, right? And I'm competitive with Uber in Austin, in Phoenix, etc. Right?
Hmm.
So that would then happen. That point of like in that could happen by March,
Hmm.
right? So they're in the pilots in November, December. February, March, they've expanded the number of vehicles because they're confident, and the expanded number of vehicles happens after they remove um, safety monitor, safety driver, right?
Right.
So that safety
So
monitor, safety
you're
driver
saying in
happens.
the next 6 months,
Yeah,
everything's got to change
right. Everything
by
will change
March,
by
right? So
well, sorry.
how does Uber survive? Because I mean, even let's say by March, if you have cybercabs on the road,
Hmm.
wherever you have Waymo already present, driverless vehicles, right? And you have this existing, let's say, a platform or the base of the Model Ys that are already spread out, right?
Yeah,
And perhaps by December you remove, if everything goes well, you remove the safety driver. So you have Model Ys, you have Cybercabs on the road by March or even April. Let's say it's end of April, right? Right? A little a one month into Q2. How does Uber survive that? Because you're already looking at that massive difference in the cost to customer.
yeah. So Uber's financials do not get massively hit until the number of Tesla vehicles get to about 200,000, At
Okay.
200,000, then there is significant pressure on them. How do they survive? Is one, they can buy 100,000 Teslas. There are Teslas in their fleet. They can all get the FSD, you know, have the purchased FSD. And if Tesla has said that we will allow private owners with Teslas and full FSD into the network, so
Into the
then
network, yeah.
so then Uber can say, okay, we have to put the capex into this to buy
But do you
200.
think Elon's going to let that happen?
He's not going to say you can't buy a vehicle. He's just going to say I'm not going to give you a deal. But if you pay full price for a car and you pay full price for an FSD, you're one of my Tesla customers, right?
Okay.
Just because you're Uber, you know, what difference does it make? You know, you're
Mm.
you're Uber, you're Google, and you bought all those vehicles. But
Hmm.
this was one of the reasons why I was saying that once FSD is working, once Robotaxi is working, there's
Okay.
going to be a surge of sales of regular vehicles.
So do you think then that Tesla Model Ys, for sure, he's not going to sell cybercabs to Uber, but if let's assume he you have 100,000 cybercabs by the end of next year,
Yeah,
you have the potential scenario of those Model Ys cross subsidizing all the other cars on the Uber network with human drivers, but
yeah.
still they wouldn't be able to match the cost per mile, the cost per kilometer.
Right, right, right. But the thing is, not being able to match the cost per kilometer only matters after. So, can you compete at whatever price Tesla's going at? So,
Mhm.
Tesla can go for the first trillion miles at a buck 50
Yeah.
for the price to consumer, maybe a buck, right? As you go from 100 billion miles, so Uber is about like 100 billion miles, and they there's a trillion miles for the full market. When you drop below the $2 to $4 price that Uber is charging now, you drop down to a buck 50 and then down to a buck, right? So you go down to a buck, you have to get 10 times bigger. So no one is losing money per se if your costs are at a buck or so, which you can have
Yeah.
even with human drivers in many locations, there's Uber has to get ultra efficient to do that because they are making money on
Yeah.
their $2 pricing,
Yeah.
right? So it starts to impact, it starts to do stuff. You're still profitable, and then no one has got cutthroat yet because everyone's
Mm.
expanding, and
Yeah.
there's still market for everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's basically, and you're starting to move people out of I own a car, I'm driving my own car, and then they're shifting over into both Uber and into Tesla for 2 years, 3 years.
Mhm.
So there's no like I'm losing money because I've gone to 75 cents or 50 cents.
Right.
And then it matters like is my cost structure, you know, 60 cents or is it 20 cents, right?
I think it's
So
yeah.
so then it's okay. So it's a transition of 3 to 4 years, right? They can see I'm screwed if I can't do this.
Yeah.
But it's screwed 3 years away. Just like Barnes and Noble, can Barnes and Noble survive
But
with Amazon? And it turns out they
you're
did.
being kind when you say it's 3 years away, because if you look
Well,
at
the full doom is three. I'm thinking the full doom is three
yeah,
years away.
yeah.
Like you're going
What's
off the yeah.
what's a way for Uber to maybe differentiate something like Uber Eats or tie-ups with, but then the Robotaxi network could so easily do that because you've got Grok inbuilt into it,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
can do so much more with Grok.
Ultimately, there is no hiding place. But
Yeah.
if you operate as a um, you have your 2,000 cars, you have your FSD, you can operate. You don't have the Cybercab, perhaps,
Hmm.
although maybe there's a deal there because it's just like selling in bulk. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, there it's a question of how much did I make you pay, right? If I
Yeah.
make you pay the right amount, you can survive. You're just, just like I don't know,
But what
Android
I
phone.
still I still don't understand why. But this is business, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Elon's not here to do charity. He has to answer to shareholders, right? I don't see any reason why there is no possibility of just undercutting Uber once you have, maybe by the end of next year, when you start. I mean, okay, so when do you think they're going to scale up production of the Cybercab?
Next year.
Is it the next year? Is it the second half or the end of the first half?
I think it starts. It's ramping through the first half of the year, and it would be
That's
disappointing to me that if they did not have over 50,000 or 100,000 per month by June.
yeah, yeah,
That'd be
right.
disappointing to me. But
So that's
yeah,
how do you compete with that scale? I mean, you 5 seconds, 0, 1, 2,
yeah,
3, 4, Cybercab,
yeah,
0,
yeah.
1, 2, every
No,
5 seconds you've got a Cybercab come out. How do you
right.
compete with that?
Well, the thing is, yes, you will lose. You'll be smaller, right? But
Yeah,
Lyft still exists, right? Uber is way
yeah,
bigger. Lyft still exists, and and
but those
and
are different business models, right? At the end of the day,
well, they have the same business models right now. Like
yeah.
Lyft
I
and
mean,
Uber have the same business model, right?
yeah,
So
right.
so so
And
then you can be smaller and still survive,
okay,
right? And then the other thing is
okay,
that if I have the same vehicles, I have Tesla vehicles. Uber bought 200,000, right?
mm,
So then the driver part of Uber dies, but then they still have 200,000 or more. They could buy 500,000, right? And then the fact that Tesla has 5 million or 10 million, fine, I'm 10 times smaller, but it is a viable business. It is a
mm,
viable business to operate Tesla's FSD. It'll be a viable business for me with my Tesla. It'll be a viable business for other people who have Teslas and FSD, right? So it's still a business. The fact that I'm not at the 20 cent per mile level of a full Cybercab and I'm at 36 or 40 cents,
yeah,
if the clearing price is 60 cents, I'm
yeah,
still making money. I
still making money.
survived.
Yeah,
I survived.
and that's where I think value-added services will come in as a differentiator.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So then if you have your network and you can do more food deliveries and stuff,
yeah,
they could
yeah,
be the best of those. And
yeah.
um, I can think of plenty of companies that have licensed a dominant product, like,
Mm,
getting Android phone license, right? Plenty of companies offer that. Google has Android they get whatever fees from that, and they allow competition to occur. Um, Back in the day, Microsoft and IBM would allow certain clones to exist, right? For a while, Mac and Apple did that, and then Steve Jobs chose to clean it up and not do that, right?
Yeah.
But then, so there's a strategic
But also,
dynamic to it.
yeah, and also remember, Uber is in a lot more markets across the world than America.
Right.
And there's a lot of markets where I think you wouldn't have the robotaxi network deployed for at least another 5 years because of, each country has its own rules.
Well, also it's because for those cheap markets,
Yeah,
humans work so cheaply that they
exactly.
can charge 50 cents per mile and make money, right?
Yeah.
Where
So
where
like a
the
Bolt would survive in Thailand, an Uber would survive in India, etc.,
Yeah,
etc.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that could be even a long-term thing because the FSD robotaxi model has to get so good and so saturated that they're
Yeah.
coming for that, like even when ARK investors run the numbers, they're saying, okay, it's gonna be 20 cents and they could charge 40 cents. So
Yeah.
inexpensive humans are not that far off that price.
Yeah.
And then if the um, government chose to say, I don't want
Yeah.
my 5 million human drivers, 20 million human drivers to get put out of work, then
Yeah.
they can say
That's
you kept out, and then Uber still has that. So there's
yeah.
because of how big it is, how global and the nature of the situation, they could, and then the fact that they can become a second place by
Mm,
aligning with Tesla,
yeah.
right? And saying, and we'll buy it. Yes, you get more money. And the fact that Tesla would get initially say $8,000 per
Mm,
year on their FSD, right? And then they could raise the price. Like before, they tried to raise the price to 15,000, right?
yes.
So they can raise the price to
I think it'll
20,000.
become that's a very good point. Yes,
So
absolutely.
they
I
can raise the
completely
price.
agree.
They can raise the
Yeah.
price as much on Uber and on anyone who's saying,
Yeah.
okay, did you buy it or not? The
Mm,
subscription price goes from like $99 to $299 per month.
yeah.
The purchase price goes from 8,000 to 15,000 because it just works now.
Yeah.
And then, but if you pay it, then you work into your cost structure. You can run a business, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from Tesla's point of view is if I sold FSD for 20,000
Yeah.
over the course of say 10 years, that $2,000 per year
Yeah.
is at
That's
50 cents per mile, right? That's equivalent to 4,000 miles.
yeah.
I'm pre-selling 4,000 miles out 10
Yeah.
years,
Already.
right? So then even at a lower price, I'm pre-selling more miles. If I got to a lower price, it's at 25 cents or something like that,
Mm,
right? We're going for
mm,
10 trillion miles and blah blah blah. That $20,000 is pre-selling like 8,000 miles per year, right? So
yeah.
it's like I'm selling it in bulk. If you want to sell it in bulk, you want to purchase in bulk and then get even more, you're free to do that. But you have to
Yeah.
pay the price
Paid.
that I'm adjusting
Yeah. Yeah.
as the value goes up.
Yeah. And in so many cases, you pay it upfront um,
Right. Right.
because you're already
And you had to buy
accounting
my
for that.
car, which I make
Yeah.
profit there.
Yeah.
So the profit thing is fine. It's all a matter of just pricing it.
Yeah.
I price
Yeah.
it right. It's dynamic, and I make sure I'm paid and I'm rewarded,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's just listen to what Kathy said recently. She was on the Master Investor podcast.
Let's talk about robotaxis. We said that with AI, it's going to be winner takes most. Is robotaxis winner takes all?
Winner take most again. I think in the US, for example, which we think will be the largest market, we don't think China will be the largest market because the cost to ride in a taxi there is 35 cents per mile. Right? And in the US, the cost per mile for an Uber, minimum $2. And
In
at
New York
surge
City, it's
time,
like a joke.
four to $8. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So it's going to be much more valuable in the United States. And in the United States, we have two players. Everyone else has failed. I know that Zoox with Amazon is trying to break in, but they've been working at it for a while. The two so far are Tesla and Waymo. Waymo commercialized way before Tesla in 2018 or 19. Tesla commercialized just this June in Austin, Texas. But now we're watching the race, and Tesla is moving very quickly. Waymo's trying to keep up. We think Tesla wins the race, mostly because it is vertically integrated from a manufacturing point of view, whereas Waymo is dependent on other auto manufacturers, and it's dependent on a hardware stack that is much more expensive. It has 23 sensors. So we've got LiDAR, radar, and then just plain computer vision.
You'll make your point.
Let me make a point then. So
Yeah,
Waymo
sure.
is in more trouble than Uber,
Right.
right? Because they're making they only have 1,500 vehicles, and then to Kathy's point of ARK Invest, it's not just the vertical integration and that Waymo has to buy other cars. They cannot make their own car. They have to get a car and then put the sensors on it.
Yeah.
So what is that process? They do not get a Waymo car out of a factory, right?
Yeah.
They get like an I-Pace, which they bought a bunch of I-Paces a year ago because I-Pace is no longer made by Jaguar, right? So they got a bunch of I-Paces when they say, hey, we're shutting down this line. Do you want like 4,000 I-Pace Jaguars? And then Waymo bought them, right? 1,500 of which they put out to places, 2,500 have not. So now they say, okay, we're going to expand quickly, and then we're going to put a bunch of our I-Paces and other vehicles out onto the road, right? What is that process? I take an I-Pace from storage where I got it parked, with my 2,000, 5,000 other I-Paces, and I bring it out, and then I go through my my team of conversion people who take $100,000 worth of sensors, lidars, etc., put them on like a custom thing. I'm converting like a custom um, Ferrari or something like that, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff to it to stick on the extra equipment, right? That didn't come out of the factory. So I'm doing a aftermarket thing to my vehicle,
which is
with a team of maybe, I don't know, like 20 or 100 people that, 5 guys each that are taking a week or a day if they got the time down to a day.
It's laborious, it's slow, it's
Right.
expensive. Yeah.
Right. And they're like adjusting each one, tuning each one. Okay, then the sensors are good.
Enough.
So it's $100,000 equipment and $10,000 worth of custom labor to put it and the time to do it. Right. And then they have not gone through all the other I-Paces. They haven't gone to the point where they can get to, even 2,000 per year that they can do. They can't even do 150 per month on this thing. And the other thing is that they need to have the LiDAR and the millimeter wave radar. It needs to be Robotaxi grade LiDAR. So just regular LiDAR, which is used as driver assist on some vehicles, of only a fraction of all vehicles have a LiDAR. Like of the 60 million vehicles that are made per year, maybe 2 million, 5 million have any kind of driver assist LiDAR, right? Which is a fewer amount cheaper than the Robotaxi version of LiDAR. So to get a lot of Robotaxi LiDAR, you have to build factories that have Robotaxi grade LiDAR, which does not exist. They have not built it because no customer, no Waymo was saying, build a factory that can make 100,000 LiDAR for 100,000 vehicles. Okay, you can buy it? No, I'm not ready to buy it yet. I want you to build a factory so that when I'm ready,
nobody's going to do that.
Nobody's going to do that, right? So then, spend $5 billion on the factory. You go first. You give me the contract to buy it first. I'm not going to do it. So then it doesn't happen. No chicken and egg.
So Brian, where's all that bravado coming from? Is it just, from Google, from Waymo, from Uber, everybody else? Or is it just like GM that you go down with this whole facade?
You go for facade because you're spinning it, and then you're concerned about raising the money because it's like you're not profitable. You're losing $2 billion, $4 billion a year. So then who's giving that money? So Google has to keep giving you money. Private equity has to keep giving that money, right? So you have to sell a story as an executive to say our plan will work And then, oh, what about that Tesla stuff? No, don't worry about that. We got that under control. We can do these things. So then they have to keep selling the story, and then people keep believing it, keep putting more money into it until the end. And then if they have any sophistication at all, they would think, well, this other scenario could happen. This doesn't make sense. But
Yeah.
if your main guys are Google, et cetera, they're thinking, I'm concerned about my Google DeepMind $20 billion investment in TPUs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I have a meeting on this for that other thing. And then the executives who make the call are on the Google other bets part of the company,
Yeah.
which would, like search other bets, right? Then they can say, okay, I still got the permission to keep going. So we haven't made the call to pull it off life support.
Yeah.
Right. So then they keep lying. So that's their motivation.
Yeah. And well, we've also got, speaking of production, so let me just bring this out on screen. This is the US patent that Tesla got for their unboxed process. And this
And
is
it's from the
just
outer part of the car.
the outer part of, yeah.
Mm.
So it's we haven't even got to the part where the truly unboxed process is revealed, correct?
Mhm. Right.
So how much of a force multiplier is this going to be when you add the hardware being produced at the cadence that it will be for Cybercab, and then add that to the software of FSD in the Robotaxi network?
Elon put out a post where he said that the unbox process they already have or are getting to 10 seconds cycle time. So the cycle time being that if my factory is producing 500,000 vehicles, like in Shanghai, the best Tesla factory, and Tesla factories are better than all other car manufacturing factories in terms of like how many cars come off the end of the line. So it takes 10 hours to build a car, goes from beginning to end, and then a completed car drives out with every 28 seconds in Shanghai. I think every 45 seconds in Texas. So he's saying that the cycle time overall production process get down to 10 seconds. So they're saying that they'll be almost 3 times faster than Shanghai. So if Shanghai can produce 500,000 cars, if I'm pushing out a car every 10 seconds, a Cybercab, that same line could potentially produce 1.5 million cars. And then there's a path to getting them out every 5 seconds, which would be, the equivalent of 3 million cars if it was compared to, a fully developed thing making 500,000 cars to the rate that is possible. But there's a bunch of things operationally that have to happen. If I could burst to that level, I have to get sustained the supply chain stuff. There's a bunch of things that have to happen for that. But this is something that they have technologically been working on for the past 6 to 8 years. And a bunch of things are coming together to achieve this. One is the processes for unboxed, which is building like giant Legos. And then there's also 48-volt architecture, so things can snap together, electronics work, steer by wire, brake by wire, so that the brakes and the steering can work, right? So this is a huge amount of effort that, someone else can take the patent and copy it. Take the patent, copy it if you have 40-volt architecture. They spent tens of billions of that. Copy it if you did all these other things that cost Tesla, 5 years and $10 billion to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So just a quick clarification. So this is not specifically for the Cybercab, but this is the unboxed process for Tesla vehicles. That's what the patent is for.
Right.
So the Cybercab is a lot simpler to manufacture by an order of magnitude, perhaps, if not more.
Right.
So just for my audience out there, a little bit of clarity, because it's important to keep that in mind. We're talking about Tesla cars here and not the Cybercab in particular, which is even more simpler to manufacture. That's the way Tesla has whittled down the process, which is just try and wrap your head around that and the implications for the cadence of production when manufacturing is scaled up.
Right.
That's going to be a sight to behold, those cars, the Cybercabs coming off the production line.
And they have been implementing this over the last year or two.
Yeah.
So in the current factories, in the current lines, where they are able to introduce a more efficient unboxed process capability, they have tried to do that. But because you're changing something that already exists and you didn't redesign the vehicle to do it,
Yeah.
they've only been able to get some.
It's a little more difficult to do that on an
Right,
existing line.
right. So they have done some effort toward that. We have not seen the volume of vehicles increase to the point where the fruits of that work have come together. We do know that Cybercab is being built with unboxed process.
Hmm.
So did they go? Supposedly, they did not want to wait until full unboxed process for the new vehicles because they said that they would make YL, perhaps Y
Yeah.
compact, using more like existing lines and not going with unboxed. But the new Cybercab is going with unboxed. So then, if they release the vehicles like I was saying in December or in January or February and start ramping, then we would be ramping with a unboxed process, say maybe starting off at only twice as fast, a vehicle every 14, 15 seconds coming off the line, right? Of Cybercab. That would be starting next year, which would mean that the potential endpoint of 4 full shifts making Cybercab unboxed could see 1 million vehicles instead of 500,000.
Yeah. And that's just at, let's say, one Cybercab every 15 seconds, which is half or a little slightly less than half the time it takes to produce a Model Y in Shanghai, right? I think it's
Right.
about 30 or 35 seconds.
28 seconds now, I think.
28 seconds now.
A
Okay.
few times they said 35, and then they said,
Yeah.
more recently they said 28.
Wow. So do you think that shaving off 7 seconds is partly due to this unbox process? Or is it just optimizing the efficiency of the lines in Shanghai?
Like I said, they have been trying to incorporate some level of unboxed
Mhm.
things into it. How much that is, it'd be a guess. I would say of the improvements, 20%. Like if I improve from 35 to 28, that's a 7-second improvement. Then 1 second of that was because of something I did with unboxed, is my guess.
Right. Wow, it's pretty crazy to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
It's just so mind-bending. It's so difficult to kind of comprehend and get a grip on, because you have these intersecting massive waves of disruption, right? You've got the software, and then you've got the hardware, and when they all come together by March next year, perhaps.
Mhm. Yeah. The other thing about unboxed process is that it's far more compact.
Hmm.
So it doesn't involve paint because they're
Yeah.
using sheet molded compound or something like that
Yeah.
to instead. So
That's-
no painting. It's the paint. The color is inside
It's
the panel.
it's in the yeah.
In the
Right.
panel.
Right.
So that's far more compact, right? So if you did things to save room in the factory,
Yeah.
let's say I saved 30% of my space in the factory for my regular construction process, I would then have the room to do a line that was full unboxed.
Yeah.
One, they don't have to do that in Austin, Berlin, because there's like all kinds of room they haven't used, right?
Yeah.
But for Shanghai, it is not impossible that they have a unboxed line within the existing factory. So that is possible. Whether they did it or not, no idea. Supply chain, various other things. But it is something where, because they say, hey, you haven't built a new factory. One, we may not know where all the factories are, because the Gigafactory, the third battery factory, Lathrop, China, and
Yeah.
then Texas. The Texas one was into what was just a super large warehouse. And then they suddenly revealed that, oh, by the way, we did unboxed here. Or we did a Megapack here,
Yeah,
right?
Megapack.
So there is surprises around new buildings and that kind of stuff that they could use.
Yeah. Okay, so what does this all mean for the stock? We've seen a few swings along the way in the past few weeks. Do you think there's a bit of FOMO creeping in, or?
Oh yeah, because we are at the end point we've transitioned to, we have FSD working 2 times, 3 times safer than human. It's rolled out to all vehicles. We have that in all of our robotaxi situations. We can get rid of the human driver. We can scale this up in the endpoint of 6 months, right? And also we have production of Cybercab. We have started to release unboxed process as well, right? So all those things basically could be in a very, very mature state in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So to me, where we are now, pre-release of Q3 volume numbers, that there's a series of constant good news around each of these things happening and developing over the next 3 to 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Leading to the endpoint where all these things are very mature, where we could have 10,000 robotaxis in 20 different cities, or 20,000, that kind of stuff, making money, showing that it's profitable. If you have 20,000 vehicles operating at 50,000 miles per year, right? Then that would be a billion, I think a billion miles, right?
Yeah.
So a billion miles at $2 per mile, right? That's like $2 billion. So that's starting to be financially significant. So then that would start moving the needle, right? But also just the fact that it's happened means that everyone has to start modeling it, right?
Yeah.
They can't just say, well, that Kathy Wood thing, I don't believe it. I give it like 0.01% chance. And so even though I kind of put it in my thing, I didn't really put it in anything because I was putting a little fudge factor to zero it out, right? So then once you have to put in at 10, 20% that we could have 1 million vehicles, right? Then in 2027, right? Then it goes from $2 billion to $80 billion, right? $80 billion of near pure profit starting in 2027, 2028. So then you put that kind of thing in, and then it's like, it's a huge financial impact. You have the ChatGPT moment, and you can see that the NVIDIA revenue surge is going to happen. So same thing for Tesla, that looking forward a year, if I'm already at that level of 20,000 vehicles, then they say, well, you could get to 1 million vehicles. If I get to 1 million vehicles, then I'm looking at $50 billion worth of adjusted EBITDA, 4 times higher. So then the stock price could go up to 2,000, right? So that surge is on the table over, from 12 months forward.
2,000 is the end of next year? Is that where you're expecting it to be? All things considered.
If the execution is as perfect as I described, right? There's certain things that are more important in terms of like once everyone sees the money and the profit for Robotaxi is for real, and I can predictably see when we will have 1 million Robotaxi, right? When they know 1 million Robotaxis around the corner, 3 to 6 months away or something like that, then we're going to converge towards the $2,000.
Okay, so that and that would mean if you have a cadence of about 100,000 Cybercabs a month, maybe June, July next year.
Yeah,
that would be clear, right?
That'd be clear.
That would be the clearest signal, even to Wall Street, that you got to factor in the Cybercab production, and you already have a mature FSD.
Yeah, and the only way you're making 100,000 Cybercabs is that you're going to put them on the road as Robotaxi, as full-fledged Robotaxi, without human drivers.
And that's the important thing. Thank you for saying that, because that's the other important thing to know, that perhaps not many people realize that it's like the Toyota concept of just-in-time manufacturing, right? You need to be able to produce Cybercabs at scale to match FSD where it ought to be to put Cybercabs onto the road. Because there's no point ramping up production of Cybercab if you haven't, adapted FSD for Cybercab and had it ready.
Yeah, if I make a bunch of iPhones but they don't have iOS there, then what am I doing, right? Like I made a billion iPhones, right? And they're sitting over there, and I can't, and not in consumers' hand. They can't use it because I don't have iOS, right? And I don't have apps or whatever for it, right?
Yeah.
That it's completely illogical to do that, right? I'm ramping that up because they will be operating useful within weeks or a month, already useful.
Yeah, and for me, the moment I saw that post from Elon about version 14, 14.1, and 14.2, it got me thinking that, okay, maybe internally they're also confident that they could start pumping out Cybercabs this year itself in much stronger numbers than we expect.
Mhm. Right, because that hardware is purpose built for Robotaxi.
Right.
There is no, especially if they make Cybercabs with no steering wheel.
Yeah.
If they make Cybercabs with no steering wheel, the only purpose for building that is a Robotaxi with a steering wheel. There is no other thing to put that on the road for, right?
Yeah.
And so if your software is not ready without human, well, even with human, if there's no steering wheel, what the human's going to do?
Yeah.
Right? So if I build Cybercabs with no steering wheel in volume, that means I'm putting them on the road for use very soon. I'm not going to fire that up without that they're really going to be in use. So that signal would not be clear that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point for people to kind of understand and take note of, that this is a convergence that we're seeing between software and hardware, and it's important to track both. And there are clues in what Elon is saying that are far beyond. It's just like we've spent almost a month kind of breaking down what he said at the All-In Summit, and now I think we're going to spend a few months trying to understand what he really is seeing over the horizon when he's talking about
and he spent
14.1, 14.2. Yeah.
Right, he spent $2 to $4 billion of capex.
Yeah.
On an unboxed line.
Yeah.
To build Cybercabs.
Yeah.
Right. Conversely, he's also put in $2,000 in every vehicle. So like 8 million vehicles, $2,000 of extra Robotaxi or FSD hardware, the cameras, the chips, and everything.
Yeah,
right?
all of that.
So that's like $16 billion
of
capex that he put into these vehicles that he wants to light up.
Yeah.
Right. So the amount of extra money that he put into that to be ready, which is something that none of the other car makers did. It's an investment for the future. It's like, well, Tesla can go to scale because they put $16 billion of hardware on the vehicles.
Exactly. And you have to remember that getting those fine-tuning those supply chains is so critical to get it right. Because if your supply chains are off, you're stuck. You're dead in the water.
Right. And so Tesla has $37 billion in cash. If Tesla did not do those two things, they would have had $20 or $30 billion more cash. They'd be at $67 billion of that. They would have margins that were like 30%, right? It's because he put this investment going forward that he is ready to scale and no one else is.
Yeah, that's really important for people out there to really understand and get a grip of. Because there's so much of hyperbole around FSD, but then you have to take into account that this is like clockwork producing a car, even though it's a simplified car with the unboxed process for Cybercab, and a much simpler car to make. No steering wheel, no pedals, etc.
So another
it still needs to come together.
Right, so
including the supply chains.
You can think of like D-Day invasion.
Yeah.
Right? The invasion of D-Day, 200,000 troops or whatever hitting the beaches of Normandy. You're planning it. You had to build, like 20,000, 50,000 of those special
landing
craft boats, right? To go. So my landing craft boats in this case is, Model Ys and then Cybercabs. Right. I'm going to hit the beaches with those things, with trained troops, in this case, like the train software
FSD,
and everything. So the hardware, the software, everything to come together. I'm going to hit the beaches. I'm going to take France. Right.
Yeah.
So same thing. I'm going to build all this stuff. I'm going to have the special gear, the special software. And then in early part of next year, or even at the end of this year, the invasion starts.
Yeah.
And then we're starting to hit the beaches and we're going, and we're driving through and then taking over the world. Yeah. Right. So that's what's happening. It's like
absolutely
everything's coming together. A lot of money has been spent, all this action to get that to happen. Right.
And that's a brilliant analogy.
Yeah. And then the competition,
Yeah.
trying to fight it off
Yeah.
doesn't have the gear, the weapons, or anything to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, did you spend, $20-30 million to do this? No, you didn't. Well, I guess you're not ready.
Yeah. Release the FSD Kraken.
Release the FSD Kraken. Yeah.
Right as you say that. Brian,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Always a pleasure. It was so brilliant talking to you. I've
Yeah.
been waiting to talk to you about all of these things and they're coming at us thick and fast, aren't they? It's
Yeah.
like almost every day there's something now. And
Yep.
the excitement's growing. Great.
Right.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
Until next time.